I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us once again, an attorney and an expert on public banking. I've had her on before. She's a popular guest here, Ellen Brown of EllenBrown.com. But most people know her for her moniker Web of Debt. Ellen Brown, thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thanks, Greg.
Well, the secret trade deal looks like it cleared a big hurdle yesterday in the Senate, but boy, how bad does something suck for Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi? Harry Reid, the leader, minority leader in the Senate, minority leader in the House. How bad does it suck for both them to vote no for it? How bad? This is a terrible deal. It's going to displace Americans. There's corporate welfare. It does infect our. You wrote a great piece on this. Tell me how bad this deal is.
Well, we don't even know how bad it is. All we know, we got out of WikiLeaks. It's all secret. They're negotiating what should be called a treaty, which should require a 2/3 vote under the Constitution. They're negotiating it for fast track, and it's completely secret. And the deal is, it's supposed to be secret for the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, is supposed to be kept classified. These documents are supposed to be kept classified for 4 years after the thing passes. How is that even possible? And there are two other agreements that we know of that are coming down the pipe that would also be covered by fast track, which means it goes directly to an up or down vote. They only get a brief time to look at it. They don't get to filibuster. They don't get to debate. So besides the TPP, which is bad enough, and what we know of it is horrible. There is the TTIP, the Transatlantic Agreement, which is similar to the TPP, which is all about Pacific Rim countries. And there's another one that we only just heard about, which is the TISA, which is the Trade and Services Agreement. This covers 80% of the American economy. All sorts of services, including financial services, which means banking. So basically, we can't regulate banking anymore. I can go into that, but that's basically what it means.
So please go into it. Yes, it's fine. Okay,
so our banking regulations under the TISA, once you privatize something, you can't go back. Once you liberalize or open things up so you get rid of regulation, basically, you can't go back the other way, which means that all these banking regulations that are still being negotiated, those are probably out. What's different about this new deal, there's this what's called the Investor-State Dispute Settlement Mechanism, which has always been in trade agreements, like for the last 50 years, which allows investors, or in other words, big corporations who are hurt by some sort of state legislation, they can actually sue in these foreign courts. They're not even courts, they're tribunals of three lawyers, basically three corporate lawyers who decide these things. And they don't have to follow precedent. There's really no law. There's no chance of appeal, and they don't have to follow American law. So basically what we've done is outsource our judiciary, which is totally unconstitutional. Many things in this deal are unconstitutional. I hope somebody manages to bring a lawsuit about that. But what's new under the ISDS provisions of this agreement is that it used to be that you could sue, like, let's say you had an oil rig off the coast of Venezuela, and Venezuela decided to nationalize their oil. So you could sue for the cost of your oil rig, which, it just got nationalized. Well, that makes sense. But now they can sue for their lost profits, which means, first of all, who knows what their lost profits are going to be and for how long into the future. The big corporations will decide what their lost profits are. And just the threat of that sort of lawsuit against any government, and these aren't even just federal governments, it's even your local governments, like if you try to put in new environmental laws or, something against fracking or against polluting the air or whatever, anything to try to protect your citizens. If it hurts corporations, they can sue for their lost profits, or how long into the future, we don't know. So just the threat of that sort of big lawsuit will stop any sort of future legislation. So basically, they've taken over the legislative function, the judicial function, destroyed our Republican form of government to the extent that we still have it, and definitely destroyed our democracy, because it's evident that the vast majority of people calling in are totally opposed to this whole deal.
Thank you, President Obama. Thank you, Mitch McConnell. Thank you, John Boehner. Thank you, Paul Ryan. You all are unconstitutional weasels. Instead of having a government of the people, for the people, and by the people, we're getting a government of the corporations, for the corporations, and by the corporations. Is that correct? Would you please expound on that?
Totally correct. It's alarming what's happening. Corporations totally run our government, totally run our economy, and we think that this is something for the benefit of the American people. It's for the benefit of the large American corporations, and they're not even American corporations. They're international corporations. So foreign corporations can sue us, or can sue our local governments for trying to protect the people against whatever they've done to destroy our economy, our environment, and our jobs, etc.
What a double cross by President Obama. I know you're a Democrat. What a double cross by your president for trade unions, environmentalists. They got to feel pretty screwed right now. I mean, double crossed. Nancy Pelosi, let me just say this again. Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid both voted thumbs down on this deal. It must suck.
For the record, I ran as a Green.
Oh, you're a Green Party. Okay, so you're not. I'm sorry, I don't mean to accuse you of being something, but I know you're from a big Democratic state in California, and Harry Reid's next door in Nevada, and Nancy Pelosi's up north, up in San Francisco, and I mean, don't you think the Democrats, because there's going to be some backlash, some basically public, forget the Democrats, just public backlash, libertarians, hard conservative Republicans, real liberals, that they're going to join together, just like the weasels that passed this, the Democrats, Republicans, the unconstitutional Democrats, Republicans that passed this. You're going to have a bizarre marriage on one side and then a bizarre marriage on the other side, fighting to get back our government. Is that what you think?
Yeah, and to me, that's the only hopeful thing about all this, is that it's so outrageous and so many people are upset. I mean, you hear the word treason battered about, that both parties, it's becoming obvious that neither party is representing us, the people. So people are coming together from the left and the right to support, or to oppose what we've got, and hopefully organize something else, a big movement of movement, as Kevin Zee says, or a big populist movement, or maybe that's a colored word, but anyway, a movement for the people, something that actually supports the people and defends the people instead of the big corporations.
What do you suppose that the Republicans, and they wouldn't have done this without the help of Democrats, so why do you suppose they push so hard for this? Are they worried about a currency reset this fall? Are they doing this for other reasons? Because it seems to me they are rabidly, forcibly, they are panicking almost, pushing this through. I mean, this all of a sudden has become, and you have the Republicans on one side calling, President Obama the imperial president, and then they're rallying around him in this trade deal, which is bizarre to me.
Well, what's bizarre is that he is pushing it. I would think he would be, it should be pro-labor, the pro-labor side that would be opposed to it. But, of course, they build it as helping labor, which would absolutely suck. But to me, my whole thing, of course, is banking, and that's my particular interest. But right now, we've had this banking system for the last 300 years in which all of our money is created privately by banks, and they've made us think that it's created by governments. And that fact is finally coming out. Money reformers have been saying that for at least a century. But now the Bank of England actually admitted a year ago, or acknowledged they said, contrary to popular belief, banks do not lend their deposits. They actually create deposits when they make loans. And that 97% of the money supply is created in this way by banks issuing loans. So if banks are creating our money supply, why are we giving this huge power away to a big private international banking cartel when it should be we the people who are creating our own money supply for our own benefit with the profits, meaning like interest going back to the people? That would be the whole public banking alternative, which is what we've been working on in the Public Banking Institute. So under the Trade and Services Agreement, they have these provisions called the ratchet provision and the standstill provisions, which say that if something is already privatized, you can't make it public. In other words, you can't take it over by government ownership. So, for example, there are places where water has been privatized and it's been a totally bad deal, and they can see it's a bad deal in other countries, Ecuador and so forth. And so they've gone back to municipal water systems, publicly owned water systems, which are much more efficient. Or something like where the railroad was privatized in England, and it's turned out to be a very bad deal. Under this new provision, they wouldn't be able to go back to a publicly owned railroad system. Or even in the U.S., we should have, I think, more municipal, more whatever you call it, utilities that are actually publicly managed. That would save money for the people, and it would cut out the middleman that's always sucking profits out of everything. So it looks to me like the banking system is in control. That's where the big money comes from, and obviously that's where the two big parties have gotten their money ever since Rockefeller and Morgan back in 1900, when the Democrats and the Republicans became the parties of Rockefeller and Morgan. It was two big banks opposing each other, basically. So they've always gotten their money from the big private international banking cartel. And if we're starting to see through that, then we will want to have some public banks that are a more efficient model. We've got it in North Dakota, the Bank of North Dakota, incredibly efficient. An article in the Wall Street Journal last November came out and said that the Bank of North Dakota is actually more profitable than J.P. Morgan Chase and Goldman Sachs. Unbelievable, but it is. And they're not even trying to be profitable. It's just the whole model, the public banking model, is more efficient. It saves money, and it makes money. And then there's the German banking system, where they have the Sparkassen, which are a major part of the local economy, or local banking system, and a recent study, January study, showed that the Sparkassen were actually much more profitable than the private international banks, the private big banks and small banks in Germany. So I think it's to hold on to their privatized share of everything and to grab more, so that the goal here is whoever they are, the big corporations, want to own everything and to rent it back to us. And this is their way of passing laws so law is no longer to protect the people. Law is now to protect the corporations and to serve the corporations against the people.
That's a good point. Law is no longer to protect the people; it's to protect and serve the corporations. The big winners in this is really not about trade. They call it Trade Promotion Authority. It's all about trade and free trade. This is about corporations controlling the people, and the big winners are the banks. Is that correct?
That is correct. Well, and things like Monsanto. The big corporations generally, but definitely the big banks. Yes.
Ellen Brown, thanks for coming on. One last thing. Do you think this is going to generate? And I want to end on a positive note. You think it's going to generate a significant backlash? Should people be calling their senators, particularly the ones that voted for this, and raising hell with them? Do you think people are going to mobilize against this? Are we smart enough to defeat this? Give me your positive take on what we could do to thwart this.
Well, yes, most people get their news from the TV, which is obviously owned by the big corporations, so they don't know. But as this information filters out, more and more people will be outraged, and I hope there will be a huge movement to change our government.
Ellen Brown, Web of Debt, your blog, The Web of Debt, and also you can be found on ellenbrown.com. Great article that you've already written about this. That's out, fresh article out. You put out a lot of stuff. You're a prolific writer. You've written, I don't know, a dozen books or something. You're a very bright person, and we love having you on. Ellen Brown of ellenbrown.com, your blog, Web of Debt. Thanks for taking us to school here on usawatchdog.com.
Thank you, Greg.